If you were a home recording enthusiast back in the 80s or 90s, the 4-track tape recorder is something that you're probably familiar with. If you're not, stick around because we're going to take a deep dive into the world of 4-track machines. Let's go back in time. Hi, my name is Pete and this is Studio Live Yesterday, your one-stop shop for all of the retro tech of the 80s and 90s. And this is an amazing piece of kit. This is the Yamaha MT120S, a 4-track tape recorder. Now, what is a 4-track tape recorder and why should you care? Well, these things were basically the precursor to your multi-track recorders that you're using today, or you probably are. Things like GarageBand and Pro Tools and Logic and Reaper kind of wouldn't exist if we didn't have these. So this is based on the original concept of recording to tape. Now, in your studios, you'd have the big reel-to-reel tape machines that might record 16 tracks or 32 tracks. But in your own home studio, you only really had like a stereo tape deck if you were lucky. And you might have had like the two boom boxes where you recorded on one and then you played on one while you recorded on the other. I know I did that. I know many of you probably did it too. Why was the 4-track so revolutionary? Well, it used a regular compact cassette, but instead of just recording stereo, it used both sides of the tape. So you did have to use a chrome tape or better, but you could record 4 tracks at once, meaning that you could plug in 4 different microphones or 4 different bits of gear and you could record them all at once. Apparently it was hard to put the tape in. There you go. So you could also bounce down. So that meant that you could record onto one track, then the next one, then the next one, and then bounce all 3 of those tracks onto your 4th track. Now I took a initial look at this over on Studio Live today, but in this video we're going to plug it in because I don't actually know if this is working or not. It's been in the cupboard for about 5 years, as you can tell by all the dust, and I bought it secondhand for $20. So why don't you and I see what this thing can do, and while we do that, we'll have a bit of a chat about the history of 4-track recording. Okay, we've connected power. I'm going to reach around and hit the power button. A red light has come on there, underneath there, but that's all we have so far. Let's play around with this and see if it's actually going to play this cassette. Well, I've noticed that we also have the record and pause button here that is flashing, so it's kind of waiting for us to do something. Let's just turn all these to tape. I have to remember how to use a 4-track because it's literally been 20 plus years and this isn't my original unit. I actually had a Tascam Portastudio 424 Mark II, which was my baby. This one I actually picked up for $20 at a secondhand store, and they said they weren't sure if it was working. They said power's on. So why don't we hit the play button here and see if it's actually going to play the tape. Well, it made a noise, and then it stopped. Now, what a lot of people have said to me, and if you know about these, let me know down in the comments here. A lot of people have said that if it doesn't work, it'll probably be the belts. Apparently, tape machines, the belts, and something like the cap stands, you can tell that I'm not into this sort of stuff. That may be what the problem is here. So we know that that's the tape. We know that it's a 4-track tape because this is one from my old Tascam, and it should work fine. But when we play, that's all we get. Chugga 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 chugga. And then it's done. So that's not super cool. But while we have this out here, why don't we plug in something? Let's get a source in here, maybe grab a microphone, plug it in here and see if we can actually get some level. Because it's one thing if it won't record, we could always use this as a bit of an analog audio processor and send some audio through and then back out again to get that kind of tape saturation. Is that a thing? I don't know. Let's play around with it. Let's plug in a mic. Okay, so where there's a will, there's a way. I didn't have any microphones that used a TS connection. I was scratching my head working out what I can do. So what I've actually done here is grabbed the output from my iPad, gone through my audio interface, which does have TRS stereo out, and then brought that here into channel 1 and 2. And what you can see here is it's actually playing back on the iPad and the audio is coming in here. So that's a good sign. It means that audio is actually coming in here. Let's check channels 3 and 4 as well, shall we? And make sure that they are also working. If we bring up the volume there, I've got to select them here to line input. Oh, yep, we've got them up way too loud. There you go. So that is actually coming in and working. That's still showing on, so it's left and right. So that's your overall metering as opposed to 3 and 4. So because we've got these to line level, it's still showing over there as our overall levels. So It's accepting inputs, and this is a good sign because we should be able to put things into here. If we could actually get this tape spinning, we'd be able to record directly onto here. Now you can see here with your different sliders, these are your input gain. We've also got the output gain over here that we can actually change all of our different channels. And these ones here, it's got line and mic. So I'm assuming that as we drive those up, it changes it from a line level to a mic level. We can also use panning here. So we can push both of these channels over to the left and they're going to go to there, or we can spin it to the right and bring them over to that side. So you can pan each individual channel individually to record on there. But of course, if you were recording just to each channel, it would all be a mono recording. But it's good to know that, hey, if we wanted a stereo signal, we can record that into here as well. Pretty cool. Now, this Yamaha machine is pretty cool. So let's take a little tour around at all the different features while we have it up here and semi-operational. So you've got all of the different inputs here, your mic or your line level, you've got your headphone jack, you've got a punch IO, so you can plug in a 1/4" punch in, punch out, just using like a guitar pedal style punch. And it did have a remote control. I don't have the remote control, so we won't be able to do anything with that. As we showed before, you've got your selectors here for what you're recording, whether they're off, whether you're recording the tape or line input, and then you can set your levels directly in there with your pan up there. Here's all your aux sends, so at the back, I'll show you in a moment, you've got the ability to add in sends and receives with your aux. We've also got down here, you've got your graphic equalizer over here on the right hand side and your independent levels for each different channel over here. Your record selectors here, you can do left and right if you're doing stereo recording, or you can use them as 1, 2, 3, and 4, or you can have your record off. So that can help you set things up there. And then we'll take a bit of a zoom in on this little panel because this is where some of the cool aspects of a 4-track recorder really do reside. So here you can see we've got a pitch control here. Now, what's that for? Well, that's where you can actually adjust the pitch. And this is something funky that a lot of people did with their 4-tracks to actually do very small pitch adjustments there just to change the tape speed slightly. You've also got 2 different tape speeds there, the 2 different styles there. One is going to be higher quality than the other. It's just how much tape per second of recording is actually used there. You've then got your, what is this one? EQ, whether you can turn that on or off. Oh, I like it. I like it that it pops up at the top there. I like the VU meters on this. Very, very cool. You've then at the top over here got, or I've already done that, stereo and 4-track. You've got your 0 stop. I don't know what that means. We'll have to look at that into that in more detail. And then over here, you've got sync on or off. What does that one do? I'm not actually sure. There's a lot of things on here that I need to play around with, and I probably need to dive in and try and find the manual for this one. As I mentioned, it's been 20 plus years since I've used a 4-track, and mine was a different model to this one. Along the bottom here are all of your buttons, your transport controls, and these are nice little touch ones, as we showed before. When we hit that, it tries to play, it fails, and it does that. But if we can get that actually spinning, that's really nice because a lot of the earlier model 4-tracks have the big piano keys that you'd have to crunch down. So that's your front section there and all of the options that we have on there. Let's flip it around and take a look at the back. Oh, and if you know more about this than I do, which is probably the case if you're watching this video, leave a comment. I don't know all the stuff about this. The fun thing about this channel is we're going to be exploring some of this older gear, and I've either forgotten or never knew all of the details. So it'll be a learning experience for everyone. All right, on the back here, you've got your aux send here. You've got this one here, which is your aux return. So you can basically send out to another piece of kit and then return the audio back into here and record it onto your channels as well, which is pretty cool. Looks like we've got a stereo sub in here. We've got our tape out for all 4 different channels here. So you can send this all out from your tape recorder as 4 separate channels. That's pretty cool. Can't remember the application for that. Maybe you're sending it out to another machine and you're daisy chaining them up. But it's all analog, don't forget that. So it's not going to be the best quality. You got your standard stereo out here. So if you want to send this out, this is what we'll be using when we do a bit more testing with this. We can send this out to my mixer and record the output of this, which we'll do in a future video. And you got your monitor out as well here. So if you have monitor speakers set up, but again, all of these are going to be unbalanced. They're all RCA connections there. So everything on this is unbalanced as opposed to a balanced XLR or TRS, which is what you'd get on your more modern gear. The underside, for those that are interested, just telling me to not open this up and play around with it or I'll get shocked, which I'll probably take that advice. I'll probably consult an expert to get this. And because we're here in Australia, it's a 240 volt, 16 watt, 50 hertz power supply. And it is the Yamaha model MT120S. So let me know down in the comments if you'd like to see this machine in action. Do I try and get it repaired? Do you have tips and tricks for me to get this thing up and running? And while you're down there, share your stories about recording with 4-tracks. I know many of you used a 4-track machine back in the day, and those who didn't would probably love to hear and learn from your experience, because even though we have digital recording these days, it is sometimes cool to look back on the history of where it all came from.